It's the Unhappy Hour.
Broadcasting to you live from the Milky Way galaxy, the solar system, planet Earth, North America, the United States of America, California, Los Angeles to be specific, home of the Stanley Cup champion Los Angeles Kings. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good job, guys. You know, and growing up as a Clevelander, I'm allowed to root for the Kings. I'm actually allowed to root for the Kings because we didn't have professional hockey in Cleveland. So, go Kings! But we're here today not to talk about hockey because Lord knows I know just about as much as hockey as I do about, I don't know what, maybe soccer? Seriously, talk about the World Cup, I couldn't tell you a damn thing about the World Cup other than the fact that the U.S. coach is saying, we have no chance to win. Great job, guy. I don't know, I'd fire you before you even start if you're doing that. Why even play the game? But no, we are here to talk about NBA basketball, and of course, you know what that means. We're going to be bringing in NBA scout and lifelong Cleveland sports fan, Zak Baris, to the program. But real quick, before we even get to Zak, we have another special guest we would like to introduce to the program, somebody that's been following what we've been doing here, the New American Media, for a while, and we'll get to him in just a minute. His name is Damien Hall. But really quick, if you haven't had a chance to check out our homepage, please do so. It's thenewamericanmedia.com. Please click subscribe on youtube.com/thenewamericanmedia. Follow us on Twitter. We're at American_media_. And on Facebook, do a search for The New American Media with spaces in between, and like the page because we like it when you do that. But we'd like to welcome Damien Hall to the program. Damien, pleasure to have you join us here on the Unhappy Hour, sir. Welcome.
Hey, thank you very much for the warm welcome.
Absolutely.
And congratulations to those LA Kings and also those San Antonio Spurs.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, first off, seriously, seeing the Kings win was fantastic. Double overtime, watching it live, it was great. I didn't hear nearly as many gunshots and hoots and hollers as when the Lakers won a few years ago. But it's still a good thing. It's still a good thing, and I'm not betraying my hometown hockey team from Cleveland because there is no such thing. So I don't feel so bad about it, but you are a huge basketball fan, and you've occasionally throughout the years, you have asked me, hey, why don't you ask Zak this, ask Zak that? And I said, you know what, how about this? How about I bring Zak into the program right now, and we bring you into the program? So that's what we're going to do. We're going to give him a call right about now. And we're going to just kind of highlight what the heck we just saw, because, they kind of got dismantled. So let's get him into the program right now.
Great.
Really dismantled, though. It's kind of the best way I can describe it, dismantled.
Or I would rather use the term exposed.
Maybe. Zak, we have you, buddy.
How you doing?
Oh, man, I'm living the dream. Welcome to the Unhappy Hour. You are live as always. And I want to introduce you to Damien Hall. Damien's been checking out the program for a while, and he occasionally asks me, hey, why don't you ask Zak this? Why don't you ask him that? And I said, Damien, just join the program today, brother. So, Damien, say hello to Zak, would you?
Yeah, hey, Zak, how are you? We've actually chatted a couple times via Twitter, so it's nice to actually, for you to take some time and call into the show and just, give us your perspective on, on what we've saw, not just with these finals, but just, I think, really the year in review.
I think it was a really interesting year, to say the least. I think you saw Cleveland. I think you saw basically, what's all going to come to full circle is you saw a Cavs team that completely flopped.
Oh, yeah.
I thought they were a 45-50 win team this year going into the season. I thought they had a lot of nice pieces. I expected Anthony Bennett to make an impact, and he really didn't. He made no impact. He had an impact in a few games, and that was about it. Kyrie didn't mature like I thought he would, and that's not a knock on Kyrie. It just means maybe he wasn't ready yet. and Andrew Bynum, obviously that whole thing was a disaster, but the Cavaliers, for as bad as they've messed up over the last 4 years, are probably looking at themselves right now. They're in prime position right now. They're, in my opinion, the front runners to go out and get LeBron James. They're the full out front runners to go and get LeBron, because with Miami losing the big three, I've been saying it all season that this was their last year for a title window, and even last year I was saying that. that last year was probably last year to win a title, but I knew they would get to the finals this year anyways because it was such an easy road, especially after the Pacers collapsed. So you're sitting there saying to yourself, okay, Indiana is done. Miami, no matter what happens, is going to get to the finals. I mean, they had virtually no competition in the East with the Bulls having Derrick Rose being out and, Brooklyn not really doing much, So, and when, Washington's not ready yet, I think Washington's still a player away, and I still think they're a year or two away from being a really competitive team in the East. So, Miami was going to get there no matter what this year. The East was so bad. And looking back on it, you say to yourself, okay, where do the Heat go from here? With LeBron James and Miami losing to San Antonio, and they didn't just lose. They got their asses kicked. I think it would be the nicest way to put it. And it just proves there was no competition in this finals. I mean, Miami struck game 2, and I thought it was going to be a series. After that, I said, okay, this is going to 7. Originally I thought San Antonio could probably win this in 5, and that was one of my predictions. And I said it wouldn't surprise me. And then watching what happened in game 3 and 4, I was just blown away. And then tonight with Miami coming out in the first quarter, getting up to a 16-point lead and then blowing it so quickly, and only having, I think it was a 5 or 7 point lead after 1, I said, okay, San Antonio's going to win this thing. This isn't even going to be a challenge. Miami failed to capitalize on basically every opportunity to blow San Antonio out of the water early on. And San Antonio came right back and just destroyed them.
Yeah, and, you're absolutely right. What did we say, Damien, when before we got the show going, that the Heat were exposed? And what did I say?
That's what Brian and I were talking and maybe you agree. I've always said that, that when the big three got together, obviously, they tried to follow the Boston mold, and it worked, just like with Boston, right? I mean, Boston, they won, they got 2 championships or whatnot, but the thing is eventually what did them in was their bench, and eventually what happened to the Heat was their bench. And, and I don't know, for me, as a basketball fan, I just don't understand the rotations that the Heat were doing because, it's different if you're playing a team that doesn't really use a guard set. They just kind of use like a kind of almost like an OKC kind of thing where Westbrook, even though he plays a quote unquote point guard position, he's really not a point. But I mean, Tony Parker, Patty Mills, the Spurs mascot, David Robinson, the fans, everybody was scoring, and it got to a point where, even when you looked at the first quarter, LeBron came out, full throttle, and for a quick second, I thought, okay, here we go, it's about to go 7 because I picked the Spurs in 7, but then you notice that, like little things, Wade in his prime would have never gotten beaten off the dribble by Patty Mills or, Boris Diaw or any of those guys. The Heat, they looked beat. They looked beat. And then, like I said, when you have guys like Kawhi Leonard, who I think, is the new Scottie Pippen, I think. The Heat.
Let me stop you right there on the fact that you made a couple of points about the Celtics and the Heat. The difference with the Celtics and the Heat were the Celtics had a very small window, and their range should have never been as long as it was. And I don't think their bench was what did them in. The Celtics basically had a 2 to 3 year window originally to win a championship. They won it in year 1. And really after that, they should have never been there again. It was the fact that Cleveland just, LeBron failed on epic proportions in order to come through. Cleveland was a much better team when they had lost to the Celtics in 2010. They were a much better basketball team than the Celtics. It wasn't even close. They're on a whole other level. And Boston.
That was such a frustrating series, Zach. That thing just still leaves a bad taste in my mouth thinking about it.
And I don't think Boston's bench did him in. I think it was the age of the big three. I think it was just Pierce getting old, Ray Allen getting old, KG. You look at Pierce and KG this year, and Ray Allen. Ray Allen was a bench player. KG averaged 6.5 points a game, and Paul Pierce wasn't a league anymore. So I really don't think the bench was what did the Celtics in. I think the Celtics were very fortunate because I don't think they would have ever won a championship without guys like having Rajon Rondo there. Boston did have a very, very good bench for a few years, and I think that's what actually kept Boston in it. having having your three core players, and you had a team surrounding them with guys. You were able to trade Kendrick Perkins, get him out of there. You were able to bring in some good players. You had Big Baby, you had P.J. Brown on one of those teams. You were able to bring, you had Rajon Rondo, you had James Posey. I mean, Boston did have good bench talent.
Yeah, they did, because they had Eddie House too, right?
And that's the difference. I think Miami, what happened is originally Miami put together a roster of the big three with no one around them their first year. And I think it really hurt them, and that's why they weren't able to beat Dallas. I think just alone the big three were at their best their first year in town. And they just had no bench. I mean, the team was absolutely terrible besides
Zach,
the big three.
there was the bench thing, but I really think the backlash that LeBron faced, I don't think he was ready for that. And I think, he tried to play tough guy like it didn't bother him, but that really bothered him. He went from being the most popular player in the league.
You could tell him the following press conference that it bothered him. And then, the second year they started bringing in guys, and then especially last year, they brought in Birdman, they brought in Ray Allen, they've had Shane Battier. They did bring in a good bench, and now those guys, Battier's retiring after the year. Ray Allen's most likely retired. Chris Anderson will move on. Chalmers is a free agent. Norris Cole's a restricted free agent. I mean, just all along those lines, I've been saying all year, and like I said, I've been taking a lot of heat for it.
Pardon the pun.
That I believe, and I've been saying this for 3 years now, that LeBron's window in Miami was a 4-year run, and only a 4-year run. I said it was not a 6-7-year run in Miami. It was 4 years. It was meant to be 4 years. And, we see how it played out. And like you said, I still, no matter what anybody says, it was still a success for LeBron in those 4 years there.
They're not going to lose really one championship. They're not going to lose 2 championships. They're not going to, yeah. No, I mean, 2 out of 4 is not bad.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. It's still an accomplishment. You made 4 straight finals. You won 2 of them. I can't sit there and say it was a failure because LeBron got what he went there to do. We discussed it on the show the other day. LeBron went there. Yeah, he didn't win 4 rings, but he still won 2 of them. And he still made 4 finals in a row. I mean, I think it's a pretty impressive accomplishment for LeBron, give or take. I mean, you can say what you want, but it was not a failure. I mean, some people will call it a failure. I'm not one of those people. Because
I don't think by any means it's a failure.
Here's the thing, you have to look at it. If LeBron would have done that in Cleveland or any other city over the last 4 years, it would have been an accomplishment. It was the fact that he teamed up with Wade and Bosh. Now, I mean, I think these superstars teams are, I think they're the future of the NBA in the short term in these small windows. Like I said, with Carmelo either going to Houston or the Bulls, one of those teams, wherever he goes, will have a big 3 next year, whether it be Chicago with Derrick Rose and Joakim Noah, and you still have the surrounding pieces there of Taj Gibson and Jimmy Butler, which are fantastic surrounding. It's a fantastic starting 5 in Chicago. Or you go to Houston and you've got a team suddenly, and let's just say they could re-sign Chandler Parsons. You've got a team going there, Dwight Howard, Terrence Jones. You've got Dwight Howard. You've got Carmelo Anthony at the 4, Chandler Parsons, James Harden, and let's say Patrick Beverly or Jeremy Lin, whoever they decide to start. It's still another pretty impressive team. Now, if I'm Carmelo, I'm looking at probably signing with Chicago because I think the East is much easier to get out of. Now, I'm also going to wait and see what LeBron does first.
Well, let's get to LeBron in a second, but Damien, you had a point on that as far as whether it was a successful 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, I think that, again, I think that real basketball people will, anyone who would say what he, I don't think by any means it was a failure, but I do think that, I think that the recipe for, having, these, the big 3 or the big 4, I think it's more like a comment because, for every person who lobbies for that, there's teams like the Spurs that did what they did tonight. So, I don't know.
But the Spurs haven't been to 4 straight championships, and they didn't, they last year they lost. So, I mean, like I said, Miami got to 4 straight ones, and they got 2 rings out of it. That's more than anybody else has had in this last time. I mean, look at a team like Oklahoma City with Durant and Westbrook. You can call that starting to look like an epic failure between those 2 guys. I mean, Durant's in his 7th year in the league now and doesn't have a title, and he's only been to 1. They lost in 5.
Wow, that's LeBron. Absolutely,
it's very reminiscent of LeBron's first 7 years in the league.
Yeah, but again, one of the challenges again with OKC, I think, is that they don't have a legitimate point guard, and and it'll be interesting to see.
I don't think that's a factor at all. I think with Russell Westbrook, I think he can be a legitimate point guard. I think the fact with Oklahoma City, I think their downfall mainly is their ownership. I've said this to Brian, I've reiterated this point probably 100 times on the show.
You have.
When you have a team in the NBA, your title window is so small. You saw how small Miami's was. Miami really had a 3-year title window, and they won 2 out of the 3. This year, they really didn't have that window. Yeah, they won the East, but San Antonio was in a whole different place than Miami was this year. They were on a whole nother level of basketball. And take into account, Miami basically had their 3-year window, won 2 out of 3 years. Now, if Oklahoma City amnesties Kendrick Perkins and they re-sign James Harden, get into the luxury tax, minimal luxury tax, they would have probably won the title last year, even without Russell Westbrook. They probably would have gotten there and probably come close to a title, if not winning it. And I can tell you for sure this year, when you have 4 of the top 15 players in the NBA, you're going to win a title.
I see. That's a good point. I mean, for me, I just, one of the things that was glaring with respect to the Heat is that they have no bigs. And I think that, as you mentioned, Battier is retired. I mean, Ray Allen most likely will be done. And, with Chalmers, I mean, there's no guarantee that, that he's going to be in a
He's not coming back. If he does come back, it's going to be for a very small amount of money. I think Mario Chalmers really hurt himself in the fact that he's going to command no money in the offseason. Nobody's going to pay him. Nobody's going to overpay him the $6 million he was probably going to get a season like he's getting in Miami now. He's not worth anywhere near that. And if it were me, I was trying to evaluate starting point guards the other day on who I would take Mario Chalmers over. And I couldn't come up with any team in the league where I thought Mario Chalmers would be more valuable as a starting point guard than anybody else. But I came up with that, I think, with one team, with the Knicks, with Raymond Felton. And I still don't know if Chalmers is better than Raymond Felton.
Wow, that's a good point.
And I think there was one other team too. I think it was Milwaukee with Brandon Knight, and that was the only other team I could come up with. And Mario Chalmers he's a bench player. It's what he is. Basically LeBron came in there and was a point forward for the Heat for 4 years.
Yeah.
When Mario Chalmers is on his A game, Miami's very tough to beat. You don't really necessarily. They didn't need to win with bigs. And I think this is what LeBron's going to go look at in Cleveland next year, because LeBron has, and this is why I say LeBron is going to go play with younger guys, and this is why I say Cleveland creates the perfect storm.
It really is a perfect storm. Go ahead.
Cleveland is flooded with young talent. Don't forget they also own Miami's first-round pick next year.
And this is, by the way, let me press pause, because Damien, this is the first time that Zach's telling us. But we talked about this a few days ago. This could become insanely important here.
We talked about this on the show.
We've talked about it longer than that.
I remember. We've talked about this a lot of times, and we've been speculating on LeBron's future.
But bring it up again, because it's so relevant now. If they blow up this team, explain what that means, Zach.
I mean, so let's say Bosh opts out, LeBron opts out, Wade opts in, and Miami suddenly a 24-win basketball team next year, because that's probably what they are. Miami would take a year. I think Pat Riley's done a great job as team president, as general manager of that basketball team. But what it takes is for Miami to reload, you have to suck for a year or two, and that means getting back under the luxury tax, doing what the Lakers are doing right now. Even though the Lakers failed to get under the luxury tax, that's because Jim Buss is an idiot. But I'll get to that later.
Yeah.
And get under the luxury tax, and then you sit there and you're Pat Riley and you go, okay, this is how I'm going to reload piece by piece. I'm going to sit there and do it my way. I can go in there. This is Miami. I know what I'm doing. I'm one of the best coaches of all time. I'm one of the best people in the front office in the NBA. I can get this done. I've got experience. I've got 3 rings. With Miami. I'm not counting the Lakers. I'm not counting the Showtime Lakers in the 80s. I'm just going on from what he's done with the Heat. And he can sit there and construct a basketball team, but it's going to take a year or two off to go and do that. I mean, his next run is going to be Kevin Durant in 2016. Now, I don't think he's going to get Kevin Durant. I'm just saying, that's where his next run is, and I'm never going to doubt Pat Riley.
Hold on. So essentially, Pat Riley's going to show up, have some meetings, and put the rings on his fingers, and he's going to walk into the meeting and say,
"I'm a cop, and you will respect my authority."
So he's just going to walk in and be a tough guy.
Yeah, but the problem is with Pat Riley's limited with his flexibility, especially because you can't sit there and tell Dwayne Wade to say, hey, Wade, opt out of your contract so we can get LeBron back in here, and you can sign for $8 million a year. Why is Dwayne Wade going to suddenly leave $10-15 million on the table a year so he can go in there? Dwayne Wade's got 3 rings. What else does he have to do? He's not Michael Jordan. He'll never be even compared to Michael Jordan. He's already a first ballot Hall of Famer. Wade has nothing else to go for at this point other than money. So, and that's why I keep reiterating that point about the money. People who go, this guy will leave $10 million on the table. I'm like, you sit there and tell me you would leave $10 million on the table.
Yeah, that's not an easy thing to do.
You know, put $20 million in front of your face and say, okay, you can have 10 or you can have $20 million. What are you going to take? I'm going to take the $20 million every day. I don't care what I have to deal with. If I already have something of that, you know, if you already give me a championship ring, I'm going to take that championship ring and then walk away, and I'm going to go for the money the rest of my career. I already have the ring.
Right. And nobody's going to give Dwayne Wade top-notch dollars after watching him fall apart over the past 2 years. That's just not happening.
No. At this point, Wade's a complimentary piece. He's a fourth player, fifth player on a really good team. I mean, he's not a guy. He's not a number 1 or 2 option. He's not a number 1 or 2 option anymore. You can rely on constantly on the daily basis. He's constantly injured. He just doesn't have it anymore, and it's sad to see. But you know, Dwayne Wade's had a great career. I don't feel bad for him one bit.
So Zach, let me ask you this: I mean, is there any, let's say, any remote hope that, as you know, let's say that LeBron is looking at the pieces in Cleveland and whatnot? I mean, is there any possibility that Wade is looking, you know, he's kind of overseeing what's going on in Chicago, being that he's from there, and you know, and I believe
I think
correct me
he
if I'm
could
wrong,
be, but here's the issue
go
in
there in the
Chicago.
off-season?
You've got Jimmy Butler signed really cheaply. Jimmy Butler's an All-NBA defensive player.
Yeah.
Would you take Jimmy Butler straight up ahead of Dwayne Wade, though?
Based on salary,
No. I mean based on skill and projection for
on a
next year.
one-season basis for that Bulls team, I would take Dwayne Wade. But here's the issue: the Bulls don't have the cap space to go out and spend $10 million on Dwayne Wade if they get Carmelo Anthony.
Okay.
That's the issue. You can't have Wade and Melo next year in Chicago. It cannot happen.
But can't every team have every player? I thought that's what the Heat told us. That's what they proved.
You've got Gibson signed for $10 million a year. You've got Noah making, I think it's 13. You've got Rose maxed out, and
Boozer too, right?
Oh, Boozer's expiring next year. Is that correct?
Boozer will be amnestied. So.
And by the way, I just still want to remind everybody that Carlos Boozer jumping ship in Cleveland cost the Cavs at least one championship with LeBron.
I would say that, but as much as you blame Boozer for that, you can blame Paxson for that just as much because he's an idiot for letting him out of his deal.
Yeah, I'll blame Paxson. I'll blame Gordon Gund. I'll blame.
Wasn't Chris Gent involved in that too?
Chris Gent was an assistant coach. He had nothing to do with, and Chris Gent wasn't even there at that time. And Chris Grant wasn't there at that time. Chris Grant was still in Atlanta, if that's what you're thinking.
I was thinking of Chris Grant.
With the Cavaliers under Mike Brown. But getting to the point about the Cavaliers and their young roster, you've got Kyrie Irving right now. You've got the number 1 overall pick. You still have a team with Anderson Varejao, who's really close with LeBron. And don't forget, you're at the point, too, where Bennett, Waiters, and Thompson are all very tradable pieces, especially Tristan Thompson. With the Cavaliers, I think they want to get rid of him soon because he's in the last year of his rookie deal. The Cavaliers, he's not worth $7 to $8 million a year. He's nowhere near anywhere near that close.
But he's a solid player, though. He's a pretty good player.
Yes, but pretty good players in the NBA are not. That's the problem. Is you get all these guys that are always getting $6-7 million a year. They're overpaid, and then teams are trying to trade them. Trade Tristan while he's cheap. You know, I think the Cavaliers, as of tomorrow, it might be tomorrow, it might be the next day, are going to make a very, very hard push starting for Kevin Love in the next few days without giving up the number 1 overall pick. You've got Memphis's pick. You've got that guaranteed lottery selection.
Yeah, explain the Memphis pick one more time.
I can't go in there and explain it because I'm not in front of my computer, but all I can tell you is it's a guaranteed lottery pick within the next 5 years. It's basically, that's all I can explain about it. I can go through the protections next week when we do the show because I'll have it in front of me.
Yeah, you know what? I'm pulling it up here. Just if this can this off Cleveland.com, plaindealer.com. All right, Cleveland Cavaliers trade with Memphis Grizzlies. Future first-round pick was the key. What was this? Anderson Varejao for Maurice Sprates. Yeah, you know what? This is complicated. We'll wait till you have it in front of you.
Yeah, I'll have it in front of me, and I promise I will explain it to you. But there are complications on it, and there's everything. Basically, it does guarantee the Cavaliers a high lottery pick by 2020 or 2019, which the Grizzlies will wind up losing their whole roster within the next 2 years. They're all free agents, and they're all getting older.
So this could be another one of those good picks, is what you're saying.
I think another player to explore this offseason that the Cavaliers will be very interested in without having to give up the number 1 overall pick will be Marc Gasol.
Talking Memphis.
That's interesting. That's
You know,
interesting. I
Kevin
thought
Love
about
isn't
that.
the only name that comes to mind. You do not need Kevin Love to win a title. Marc Gasol would be a huge get for the Cavaliers. He can help shut down Duncan in the post. You know, that'd be a big get. The Cavaliers will also, believe it or not, look at Joakim Noah this summer, depending on where Carmelo Anthony goes. I think it's another, you know, highly realistic possibility. I'm not saying Noah is going to come to the Cavs, but I'm saying it is a realistic possibility. And, you know, especially another name to throw out there with Danny Ferry being in Atlanta is Al Horford.
Oh.
So those are the names to look at. There
Al Horford's a good piece. What kind of numbers is he commanding these days?
Al Horford's a great player. He's still a 17 and 10 player.
Well, how many millions though? I don't care about points and rebounds. I want to know how many millions.
Al Horford, I think he's at like 12 or 13 a year. He's not maxed out, and he could bring the Cavs. He would be a perfect player for the Cavs.
Okay.
Now,
Let
me ask you guys
and
both
you give
this,
up picks.
though. I don't mean to interrupt, but
no, go ahead.
Now, one of the things that I think that both Horford and Gasol are very intriguing is because they're very good passing big men, if you will. And I know that at least from, you know, because I live right outside the D.C. area, so, you know, really we don't get a lot of Cavs stuff out here. But I know that one of Kyrie's, I guess one of the things that at least that I had remembered hearing about Kyrie was that he needed to learn how to play with a big man because he's never really played with a big before. So I think that by having a guy, whether it's Kevin Love or any of the bigs that you mentioned, would obviously help him greatly because they are passing big men, correct?
Well, let's just say the Cavaliers, let's just say they were to acquire Marc Gasol. Or let's go Al Horford. I think that's a more realistic possibility. Let's say they get Al Horford. Then suddenly your 5 is Al Horford. Verja's still a very good 4.
He's still very good if he can stay healthy.
Yeah, and Verja's a very good passing 4 too, especially with LeBron there.
And still a high energy guy.
You'd have LeBron at the 3. You would draft Wiggins. Wiggins would play the 2, and you number 1, and at the 1 you'd have Kyrie. So this would allow your roster to basically go out there, and your number 1 scoring option is LeBron. Your number 2 is Kyrie. Your number 3 is Al Horford. Your number 4 is Andrew Wiggins, and Verja can sit there and rebound the hell out of the basketball.
Okay, that's sick.
Yeah.
To me, that is a dominant young team for the most part that can sit there and reel off and go to the title 4 or 5 straight years. It's a very, it is a very young and skilled basketball team with a lot of young players.
Yeah, but who's on the bench, Zach? But who's on the bench?
I mean, no matter what, you're going to have Jared Jack because he's virtually untradeable. You'll have Tyler Zeller off the bench. Tyler actually performed well in the second half last year. He really did over the last month of the season. And I think the Cavaliers, don't forget, they'll still have the mid-level available, and they'll still have more money available in free agency. Don't forget that. I think a guy like Patty Mills could be on their radar big time. In San Antonio, he is a free agent. He will be on the rock. He will be definitely on the radar.
What about Lance Stevenson?
I don't think Lance Stevenson and LeBron will do well together. I don't think that would happen.
They're not going to kiss and whisper sweet nothings into each other's ears on the same team?
I mean, well, I don't know. Maybe Lance Stevenson might blow in his ear a little bit, but...
I mean, the reason why I ask is because you mentioned Noah going to Cleveland, and I know that there is, well, I shouldn't say I know, but isn't there kind of a love-hate relationship between Noah and LeBron?
I think it's just because of the rivalry. I really don't. I don't think there's any hatred or animosity between the two.
Because
they would get along just fine.
Noah's a lot like a Dennis Rodman or an Albert Bell or something. It's like when they're on your team, you love him.
Noah's one of those guys. He's very intense.
Yeah, so when they're on your team, you love him. That's the best person to go into the foxhole with and go to war. But when you're playing against him, it's like, dude, I just want to slap you in the face. Like, get away. like you. I could imagine them being so annoying to another team. But when your teammates what's up, brother?
I've been pretty dead on with a lot of the stuff I've said on the show. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff that sounds far out there that I say months in advance has turned out to be true. I threw out the Will Dame trade very early on. That wound up happening. I mean, I've thrown out some stuff on the show that I've been way out there. And like I said, I think the name now, like I said, I don't think Kevin Love is the realistic answer in Cleveland because it could happen. I'm not saying it will. It could. It could very well happen. But I think more realistically, I think you're looking at Danny Ferry down in Atlanta who realizes that his team is in purgatory down in Atlanta again.
As always.
And he's got Paul Millsap there, and he's got Al Horford. Now, they could wind up finagling out some deal that would send – I'm not saying this is going to happen, but this would be very interesting, where the Cavaliers could get Millsap and Horford and somehow include a bunch of picks and a bunch of the young players they have without having to give up the number one. And suddenly you'd be going into a team. I'm not saying this is happening, but you would give up Varejao in that trade too. And then Ferrer would go and move Varejao in a 3-team trade. And then you would have Horford and Millsap as your 4-5, LeBron as your 3, Wiggins as your 2, Kyrie as your 1. That one would be huge. Well, because Millsap's got 1 year left on his deal. After this, he's got 1 year left. He only signed a 2-year deal. He signed really cheap. He signed really cheaply in Atlanta on a 2-year deal. I think that is one that could wind up working. So I think more realistically they get one of the two, and I think it would more likely be Horford. But
now, Zach, what do you think? What is the center's name? Is it Asik? I mean, is he still exploring?
Omar?
I actually just ran in O'Hare Airport the other day, like literally 3 days ago. I ran over.
I hope he didn't knock you out. He's a pretty big guy.
No, I ran into him in the airport. I was getting off my flight from, I was coming in from San Antonio, and I was running through the airport, and I brushed into him and talked with him for, I think, 2.5 minutes, and it was real quick.
Yeah, do you think that the Cavs would have interest in him just as a big?
Yeah, I do. I do think they would have interest in him, but I don't know on what level they would have interest in him. I think here's what you're going to see go down in the next 2 weeks. Basically, the Cavs coaching search now is really, really going to heat up. I think you're going to see. I think as soon as you get an answer from LeBron on whether he's opting in or opting out, which he will be opting out, because if he was opting in, he would have said something about it tonight.
You think that's a given then?
With the way that post-game press conference went tonight, yes, I think he's done. I think he's done in Miami. I think it's a done deal.
What about the conference gave it away to you, in your opinion?
Just the fact he wouldn't answer anything about. He was very non-committal about being in Miami next year. Very non-committal. It reminded me a lot of Cleveland in 2010.
Zach, it's interesting you mentioned
4
that.
years ago.
It's very interesting you mentioned that because if you noticed, he had kind of walked off alone, like he did, when he was with the Cavs, and also he has been very non-committal throughout the season. And he's been what's interesting though, and and again, honestly, as a basketball fan, I don't know, the reality of things, but I think that, that when you see him now wearing a Cleveland Indians hat, wearing a Manziel 1 jersey, or
don't forget the Manziel thing. The Manziel jersey is because LRMA represents John. That's the reason. He's a big Manziel guy because Manziel's part of his firm.
I see. So, but it's just one of those things too, where while he's been very non-committal about Miami, he has made comments in the past, about, if those great fans in Cleveland, if they welcome me, we'll have to see what happens, but, right now I'm playing for the Miami Heat. So he's been very, he's made those.
This has been going on for 3.5 years now with LeBron being, coming back in there. He knows Cleveland is a very passionate fan base. That's what, really upset me when people go, oh, OKC has the best fans in the NBA. And I said, I'm thinking to myself,
nice try.
Out of all the arenas and all the NBA games I've been to myself, I've never been to an arena louder than Quicken Loans Arena during the playoffs in my life. And I've been to a lot of NBA games.
Let me tell you, one of my friends said, what's going to happen what will the Miami Heat fans do when LeBron comes back and plays in a Cavs jersey? And I replied, what Heat fans? The arena will be empty.
Well, no, it's going to be like 4 years ago when all the Heat people, when LeBron went to Miami, they were all the homeless people wearing Cavs jerseys.
Well, not only that, but, I spent significant time not in South Beach, and, I still have friends there, and, it was one of those things, and Zach, you may know this too, where when the Big Three first got together, they were basically, they were giving away free tickets, and they were doing all this advertising in the Miami Herald because no one was coming to the games.
Yeah, my best friend from Cleveland actually went to law school down at University of Miami. Lived down in Brickell downtown,
okay.
And I have to say I've been down there numerous times. I've been down to Miami numerous. I've been down there twice in the past month, and I can tell you right there, it's nothing like when I was in San Antonio. It was nuts last week.
Yeah.
It was absolutely nuts. Complete mayhem in the streets after the Spurs won, and. This is just one game when they won. People were honking in the streets. It was pretty unbelievable to see. And in Miami, you would never know you would know the finals game were going on. The bars were packed, but nobody really cared. It was more. It's a very fan base with a lot of front runners. Is people.
You mean
know,
it's
and
a
that's
lot
the thing
less?
about
It's a lot like
Miami.
Jack Nicholson and the Jack Nicholson watchers at Laker games.
Well,
No,
I
mean,
would
and-
say that
and
Miami.
like I said, there's a lot of fake Laker fans too. My cousin who moved out to LA a year and a half, or she moved out in 2012. She moved out 2 years ago. Well, her boyfriend, she's from Cleveland. She went to Arizona like me, and her boyfriend's from Orange County. She's now a Laker fan, and I'm sitting there like disgusted, going. I was like, she's sitting there like, she's like, yeah, we won tonight. And I was like, what do you mean we won tonight? I was like, when are you a Laker fan? It's just, people want to be front runners. Like I said, Cleveland's fan base was huge when LeBron was in Cleveland. I can tell you right now, if the Cavaliers have LeBron, Wiggins, and Kyrie, they're going to be the biggest thing in the NBA scene since Jordan and Pippen.
Yeah, it's one of those things too where for me, as a fan, and I lived in Cleveland for a while. I mean, I went to high school in Brunswick and whatnot, but I think that, or at least my hope is that it won't become, whatever LeBron does, that it doesn't become this huge spectacle that he learned, this time, from the decision.
I don't think LeBron's going to go out there and make a spectacle. You're going to have media outlets like, as for ESPN, making it a spectacle. No matter what LeBron does, it's going to be a spectacle because of the media. It's just how it's going to be a circus. And I think LeBron this time is going to play it very cool. But I think depending on the Cavaliers will hire their next coach now. Then my guess is as soon as LeBron opts out, within a day or two after LeBron opts out, because I think they're starting to get word from Rich Paul now. Maybe even as early as tonight. I think they'll give it till tomorrow on where they're going to go now and focus. And if Calipari happens to take the Cavs coaching job, which isn't out of the realm of possibilities, I'm not saying he will.
So he signed the big deal already. Explain what Calipari did and why he could still take that deal and then come to Cleveland, even though he just signed a long-term extension.
He would just have to give up the money in Kentucky. And like I said, Cleveland's offering. They've got $24 million more dollars on the table. And also, I also don't think Calipari, when he accepted the deal, was expecting LeBron to lose a championship too. It's very Tom Izzo-ish as of 4 years ago. I respect
Zach,
Tom Izzo for not taking that job.
Zach, pause on Tom Izzo for a second and feel free to get back to it. But reports have it that Calipari signed his deal in April, but the reports only came out a couple weeks ago or something similar.
So it means nothing then. It really doesn't. If Calipari wants the Cavs job and LeBron, and they go through a third-party channel tomorrow saying LeBron's opting out, he's going back to Cleveland. Calipari will say, okay, I'm gonna sit there. I'm gonna go through private conversations with Dan Gilbert again, and I'm gonna take the Cavs job. I'm gonna give it 3 weeks though, but I'm in private negotiations. I'm gonna take the Cavaliers job. Now, I think the likely hire for the Cavaliers at this point is David Blatt.
So, that was going to be my next question. Do you feel that because he coached at is it how do you pronounce it, like Maccabi Tel Aviv?
Maccabi Tel Aviv.
Yeah, Maccabi Tel Aviv. But what about Mark Jackson?
The issue with Mark Jackson is the guy can coach, but the problem is he clashes with the front office, and he clashes with ownership, and he clashes with his own coaches. His players love him, though. I don't think that's a fit you want with LeBron James. I honestly believe – I'm not saying Mark Jackson won't happen. I just don't think it will. I think the likelier possibilities are an under-the-radar name right now who hasn't been mentioned now in a couple of weeks is Adrian Griffin from the Bulls. I think Tyrone Lue is still one of the names, although I don't think that's LeBron's first choice for coach, as far as I understand from my source. And, Mark Price, I don't think Mark Price has been interviewing for a head coaching job. I think Mark Price has been interviewing for an assistant job, which would be with David Blatt if he were to take the job.
How does that work? They'll bring in Price in case Blatt gets picked? I don't know. That sounds interesting.
That's what I've heard. I've heard Mark Price has not been interviewing for the head coaching job necessarily. It's been
what was Price up to before this? Because he's been coaching, obviously not in the NBA, but he's
been
been doing
something. No, Price has been coaching. He was with the Orlando Magic for a few years, and now he's with the Bobcats.
Well, excuse me.
Yeah.
So he's been in the NBA.
So Zach, so given your knowledge and stuff, I mean, this upcoming this off season, it sounds like it is going to be great for fans and great for the league. I mean, with respect to this whole thing with the Clippers, I mean, do you see any potential fallout from that could benefit the Cavs?
No, I don't see any benefit that's gonna. I don't see any follow-up that's gonna benefit the Cavs. Steve Ballmer will wind up owning that team sooner or later. The problem is with getting LeBron in a Clipper uniform is the fact that it's going to be very difficult to make it work. You have to go and trade Blake Griffin, and I just don't see that happening. I really don't.
I see. I mean, even though, there had been reports that he and Chris Paul really don't get along.
Who, Blake Griffin and Chris Paul?
Yes.
I haven't heard anything along those lines, and when I've been at Chris Paul's charity event, I was there for 2 years in a row. That was the exact opposite impression I got. I felt that they were very close. I haven't heard anything about them. Not liking each other. And Blake and Chris Paul were side by side for both of those charity events.
Well, what we do know for sure, what we do know for sure and for certain, is that the longer this Donald Sterling nonsense continues to drag its way out, there was a point, and I'll tell you what, I don't think that point is right now even close. But there was a point where the rumors of LeBron to LA, but not the Lakers, that was a legitimate possibility. But the longer this Clippers thing drags out, and you see that Donald Sterling's going to sue the NBA, which he's also a part of.
I think it's a mess.
It is a mess, and it's going to continue.
I don't think it's going to be decided by July 10th.
No, I don't think so either.
Agency starts.
Not a chance.
No.
Well, and so here's a question I'll pose to both of you guys.
Yeah.
So, okay. So, with respect to this whole Donald Sterling thing, obviously his position with, regarding, women and people of different ethnicities, it's been well documented. To me as a fan, how as a player, how do you get upset at an owner when the NBA more or less is a fraternity. I'm sure like during free agency and whatnot, players talk about, what owners are good to play for, what owners are bad to play for.
Well, and they
I
also
really don't think players, honestly, I really don't think players go over what ownership to play for. I think it's who the general manager, who can assemble the best roster. I don't think a lot of players are sitting there going, oh man, I got to play for Mickey Arison, he owns the Heat, or I've got to play for the Reinsdorfs because they own the Bulls. I think that's one of the last concerns. Players are getting paid no matter what. And getting back to the Donald Sterling point real quick is, Donald Sterling's just an old man. The guy's an idiot. But
Right.
if you look, it's not a very uncommon thing for a rich, wealthy man to have, those kind of viewpoints. That's just how it is. That's how the older generation is in America. I'm not sitting here defending Donald Sterling. I'm just saying
I agree with
know
you.
how it is.
That's my point.
And with Donald Sterling, I can guarantee you that a lot of other owners that are sitting there in their 70s and 80s have very similar viewpoints as Sterling. They're just not stupid enough to say them out loud.
And you know what the thing is? What you have now is Donald Sterling has hired private investigators to go dig up dirt on every other owner to say, okay, you guys want to boot me out of the league? Guess what? How about this time where I got you doing this? How about this time where I found you doing that? You guys really want to bail on me because I'll ruin your life too? It's going to get really bad.
People say racist things all the time, whether it's blacks against whites, whites against blacks. I can safely say in my life, I've said some stupid things. I know I have. Brian, I'm sure you have too, and I'm sure both of you guys have.
Oh,
I'm sure both of you guys have at one point.
And I've heard ridiculous stuff too. It's part of life.
Being around sports, I've heard, dumb white ass, stuff. I've heard stupid stuff. But it's not like anybody means it. It really is. Donald Sterling, when he's saying that, Donald Sterling's an old man. He's a little senile, and it just happens. It really does. So you're sitting there, you're telling me that nobody else on the planet has said those things. Listen, and this is what upsets me as something. It's like, Al Sharpton, they're sitting ridiculing him on national TV. I'm not an Al Sharpton fan because Al Sharpton is the most racist person on TV.
You know what?
As a black,
I'll agree with
that.
He
really is.
I'll agree with that. And that was going to be kind of one of the things that I was going to kind of lead into, because it's one of those things where, again, when you look at sports, whether it's NBA or NFL, in a very, very weird way, it's comparable to certain aspects of slavery. And the reason why I say that is because of the fact that when you look at combines, the things that people are evaluated on their combines.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
That is really weird. It's like the trading block. It's really awkward to watch.
But when you
this guy's
guys
evaluated.
like
He
Al
runs a
Sharpton and Jesse
4.3
Jackson,
40,
Jesse
or
Jackson
this guy, he's got a red flag because his parents are divorced, or the pedigree he comes from. Someone in his family has had this, and yeah, I see exactly what you're getting at, and it does make a point. But I mean, the thing with Donald Sterling is Sterling said something out of line. Yeah, I know it was in the privacy of his own home, but he should have never been recorded, and the tape should have never gotten out. But it did get out, and action had to be taken, and that was the most proper action that had to be taken against Donald Sterling. Proper action did need to be taken, and but like I said, there's reverse racism in the United States. There's racism all the time that goes around from every single race, whether it's...
And I'm on the record saying that there is no such thing as the word reverse racism, because that phrase implies that racism is only white against other.
Well, it basically is, though. That's what it is.
But Damien, I wanted to get back to your combine comment there. You were
here's the thing, right? I mean, you have guys like Al Sharpton and guys like Jesse Jackson, who, by the way, has no room to talk because, I mean, he got caught, I believe it was on Fox News calling Obama a bitch on the mic and stuff. Like, he thought his microphone was off, And it's one of those things where...
cheated on his wife numerous times. He's had babies with other women. These are the last two guys in the world that should be speaking. Al Sharpton sparked race riots in Brooklyn that killed a bunch of people.
Well, see, this is the problem that I have is that people wanted the Clipper players to protest and do all this stuff. But I mean, the thing is that, Baron Davis, I mean, you had made a point earlier, Zach, where players don't talk. And when all this stuff came out, there were comments where...
Well, they talk, just not about the owner as much as the GM,
well,
and I think that's what he was saying.
Here's the thing, though. Baron Davis was on, I think it was the NBA.com TV or whatever. He was talking about how Donald Sterling used to hang out in the showers and watch guys. And how, and even with Elgin Baylor,
Whoa.
I mean, Elgin Baylor is one of the greatest players of all time. And so to me, it's a multi-headed monster because, look, Zach made a very good point. People go where they're going to get paid. So it's kind of like one of those things where I think, at least me, from where I sit, that Chris Paul and them guys, they didn't give a shit about what Donald Sterling was saying until maybe they realized that he wasn't just talking about the people that he isn't.
Until they became
talking about
everybody knew what Donald Sterling.
Oh yeah, he settled the largest. He settled the largest lawsuit for discrimination in housing.
Don't forget, Chris Paul still went and played for him. Signed a max extension to play for the guy. Chris Paul was not that stupid where he didn't know what was going on. You can't.
My point. That's my point exactly.
The only reason these guys made a stand is because it became public and they had to. They didn't have a choice.
Right.
I mean, don't forget, this was an owner who also said last summer, who almost nixed the whole deal for J.J. Redick is because he didn't want to pay a white guy $7 million a year.
And that's a great point, too, until I never heard that, and I had to look it up and go, wow,
yeah.
Okay. All right, what do you know?
Don't forget, this isn't just white against black. This is an old man who is obviously not in his right mind.
He's off his rocker.
He's been in his right mind for 30 years. And like I said, I'm not going to sit there. The fact that he was even allowed to own an NBA team in the first place, and he's the one. And Stern let this happen. Letting Chris Paul by mixing a deal with the Lakers and letting him go play for Donald Sterling and the Clippers. He's the one who made this whole thing possible. This whole thing would have never been an issue because Donald Sterling would have been completely irrelevant if the Clippers were still Clippers. Without Chris Paul, and Chris Paul was playing for the Lakers, and the Lakers would be competing for a championship right now. It'd be a completely different story, but it's not. And sitting there, Chris Paul went and knowingly played for this guy, knowingly played for this asshole who made previous comments, who booed Baron Davis off the court. And there it is. There we go right there. You cannot play stupid and be naive and not know about this. When you're signing a max contract, you know all about the owner. But when you're sitting there making $23 million a year, $22 million a year, you're going to look the other way.
Well, let me get back to the owner for a second because we were talking about LeBron, we're talking about the Cavs, we're talking with Damian Hall and my buddy Zach. Well, both of my buddies actually, but Damian Hall and NBA scout Zak Baris. Talking about owners, Comic Sans Font. Dan Gilbert once proclaimed a whole bunch of nonsense after LeBron James, the former what do you call him? Former self-described king. Anyway, whatever it was.
Yeah,
how much of a relationship then? Now we're talking about owners and Baron Davis and Chris Paul going to play with Donald Sterling. how much is this going to play into LeBron's new decision to go play with whatever team it is, to have to speak with Dan Gilbert again? Do they have enough good memories to trump this?
I think basically through third-party channels, Gilbert's already apologized for it. I think LeBron's apologized for the way he left. I think let bygones be bygones. And like I said, Dan Gilbert, LeBron's the one in control now, not Dan Gilbert. LeBron is. Dan Gilbert, like I said the other day, is on his hands and knees.
Yeah, I remember what you said the other day.
Open, ready for LeBron to say go.
So, well, here's a question though regarding that. I do remember one of the things that LeBron one of the many things that he did that rubbed people the wrong way was, yes, Dan Gilbert he went bonkers and said what he said, but LeBron and some of his people had tried to work the race card angle by saying that Dan Gilbert was a slave master.
It had nothing to do. Dan Gilbert was not a slave master. A slave master is not paying his slave. Don't forget, these guys were slaves because they weren't making any money. LeBron was not a slave. LeBron was making $20 million a year. He was the exact opposite of a slave. He was sent out there to go do a job, and he was paid for it. Are we all slaves for going to work every day and getting a paycheck and collecting a paycheck? Yes. It's on the same lines as LeBron. These guys are not slaves. And if they are slaves, hell, I'll be a slave. For $20 million a year.
Yeah, 23 mil. Yes, massa.
For $20 million a year, I'll call you master. I'll do whatever you want, except bearing something pretty gay. But I'm not going to do that. But getting along those lines, I'm saying to go out there and dribble a basketball, I do not consider that slave labor.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think personally, considering what Dan Gilbert, has done and continued to do, I also have very, very strong Detroit ties. So, to see what he's
Gilbert's
done.
been great for the city of Detroit. He really helps out a lot of people. He's on sits on a lot of charity organizations. Really, basically, I don't know where Detroit would be without Dan Gilbert. It's already bad enough with him. It would be horrible without him. He's really helped save the city. And he was one of the guys that started, he hasn't done much for Cleveland lately. Cleveland's doing fine on its own. You go downtown now in Cleveland, there's tons of development. Cleveland hasn't seen this kind of development in 30 years. There's new building after new building. There's a new hotel going up after new hotel. You have a new convention center, a new medical mart that Dan Gilbert was a part of and helped secure. He played an influential part. Yeah, he hasn't lived up to his name by getting in that second phase of the casino with shops and retail. But I'm sure if you bring back LeBron, he's going to be the first one building that thing tomorrow, because it'll generate so much revenue having more shops and restaurants downtown that he owns next to the arena. So, it's one development after another in Cleveland right now, and it's nice to see. And it's something Cleveland hasn't had for a long time. As much as Dan Gilbert is a very smart businessman, he's a smart and calculated businessman. He's not stupid. He knows what he's doing. Yeah, Dan Gilbert had to do it. Don't forget, because Dan Gilbert wrote that letter, he won a free pass from the fans of Cleveland now for almost 4 years. He's got a free pass in Cleveland for about 4 years now. Even though the team has sucked, they've screwed up after screw up, and yet he still has a free pass. Not from me, and not from people who actually know basketball, but from the typical fan, he still has that free pass. Oh, I love Dan Gilbert. Is what the typical Cleveland fan will tell you. Even though he's probably so far over the last 4 years, he's been the worst owner in Cleveland. And that's saying something.
That is saying something.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. We all know that LeBron, his, one of his main goals is to become, this billionaire. Do you think that, that part of, him coming back to Cleveland would help him rebuild his, him rebuild?
In a second, because he can now build his own. Here's the difference. It doesn't matter what city LeBron plays. He's not going to be any bigger than he is now by going to LA or New York. Not going to happen. I'm sorry. It's just not. With the age of social media, with cameras everywhere, and ESPN, look at Johnny Manziel playing in Cleveland. It wouldn't matter if Johnny Manziel was playing in Dallas. It wouldn't matter. He'd be getting the same publicity he's getting now. He's the top headline on SportsCenter every day. In this day and age, it doesn't matter where you're playing. Cleveland's not exactly a small market. People like to say it is, but it's not. It's still one of the Cleveland metropolitan area is still one of the 15 largest in the United States. It really is. And you get to that, it's not Oklahoma City. It's the 46th largest in the country. Kevin Durant went to New York or went to LA would be a much bigger name for himself. Or if he went to Houston or anywhere else. It's just the fact that Oklahoma City is very, very, very small. It's not a major city in the United States. It just isn't.
Yeah, I mean, there's talk here in D.C. about him, possibly coming
I've
back
been
to
saying
play
for a
home.
couple of years now, I think Durant will wind up heading. I think there are three choices.
That's right. We
coming
talked
up
about
right
that a couple
in
days
2
ago.
years. I mean, I believe there will be four. I think number one, though, I think you're going to have the Knicks. I think that's why Phil Jackson came on board. Because Phil knows realistically he's not getting LeBron in New York. And the odds are he loses Melo. My guess would be they suck for the next 2 years. He's got Derek Fisher in place, and I think he made a calculated move by bringing in Fisher to try to lure Durant in Westbrook
LeBron.
in 2 years.
We've created a monster.
No, but I think his move is going to be go after Durant. Put it really good. Next year is go make your move in free agency, and then the next year have that cap space and go and get Kevin Love in free agency. I mean, not Kevin Love, Kevin Durant. And I think that's what he's doing up there. I think that's what he's ultimately trying to build. Look what Pat Riley did. Pat Riley took a couple of years off. I don't mean years off, but they sucked for a couple of years in order to go and build that roster. He had to free up. He had to get flexibility, and I think Phil Jackson's going to do that in New York. I really do. And
See, I'm not sold on Phil Jackson doing anything in New York just because of the fact that I think that there's so many uncertainties with that Knicks team.
there are plenty of them, but I'm just saying though, Phil Jackson, his job was to go in there and clean up the roster, and I think that's what he's going to do. I think he's going to get all those contracts off the books, and he's got say over Jamie Dolan as of right now. So I think he's going to go in there and clear the whole. I think they're going to be terrible next year. I really do. And that's what his job is to go do there, and then build a team from there. You cannot build a team starting this offseason. You just can't. They don't have any cap flexibility. They're completely screwed, and they don't have any picks. Now, I think realistically, Durant, where he'll be in 2 years, is going to be in Washington because you already have Beal and you've got Wall. You've got two budding stars in DC, and you can go and add Durant to that mix, and you'll have more flexibility. You can move younger guys like Otto Porter. They could be a really dangerous team in a couple of years with Washington.
Well, let me ask.
Washington could.
No, pause on Washington. I want you to get back to Washington. Don't forget where you're headed with this. But I just wanted to ask, though, do you at least think that Phil Jackson bringing in Fisher, do you think that's going to be a good move? Because Phil Jackson coached Fisher for so long that at least Phil's system is going
Phil
to be.
Phil wanted someone running the triangle offense. That was essentially what Phil wanted.
Right.
That's why he went after Steve Kerr, and that was why he went after Derek Fisher.
Exactly.
He wanted someone who ran the triangle.
So do you at least trust that he's going to – essentially you have two head coaches in New York is what I'm getting at.
I don't know if Phil Jackson's going to be a head coach. I think he's going to sit there and mentor Derek Fisher, but I don't think he's – I think just like Pat Riley did, I think it's a very identical situation to what Pat Riley did with Eric Spoelstra.
Right.
Wow.
And I think you're going to see that. And like I said, I think you're going to see Miami now. It all remains to see what Miami can do. It all depends if Wade opts in or opts out. I don't see Wade opting out and LeBron opting in. I don't see that one happening at all. When I talked with someone from Creative Arts Agency back in Ann Arbor at my sister's graduation, I was talking with someone from CAA. And they said, what are your thoughts on the situation? I said, I think LeBron opts out. This is, I said, I don't see the Heat winning the title. I said, I think he opts out, and I think he's back on the train. I think he's back on the bus to Cleveland next year. And he goes, I think you're crazy. He goes, LeBron's going to opt in. Bosh is going to leave. LeBron will opt in. I go, that doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't. And I said, why would LeBron say if Bosh leaves? And he goes, well, we can reload. I go, it's not going to happen like that. I said, if Bosh opts in, and I said, Bosh isn't going to opt in. Bosh is now going to go for the money. Miami's title window's closed. It is. Miami has no chance of winning the finals next year. They have none. I think San Antonio, personally, is my favorite to win it again. Right now, Vegas has the Heat winning it. If the Cavs are still 100-1 or whatever they are, I'd be willing to put $100 on them because something tells me that could be where your money's at.
That would be a really good bet right about now. Who are our boys in Vegas?
So,
if you look at Bovada, I think you can place your bet online, but the Cavaliers right now have to be 60 or 100-1, somewhere in that range.
All right, I kind of like that. Now, I was going to say, I want you to get back just to Washington for a second, because seeing Durant there, like you said, following a similar path as LeBron, 7 years in, one finals appearance, and a whole, you're just kind of looking down the road going, I don't see this happening. But I did want to say something just to wrap up in a neat little bow, talking about players talking with other players, about owners and maybe GMs. I'll tell you what, the 2008 Summer Olympics in Beijing, that really turned the table for, wow, it's so cool that the Cleveland kid, LeBron James, is headlining this team and to get a gold medal. Well, it was kind of that appearance that a lot of people said kind of, laid the groundwork for the big three teaming up in Miami.
Well, don't forget in 2012, people were talking about how well LeBron was connected to Irving in Vegas in 2012. I mean, I happen to see it for myself. So, and that was exactly 2 years ago. So it was 2 years ago exactly from now. They were training in July 2012.
Right.
But also though, I mean, wasn't that one of the worst kept secrets though about about the desires of Bosh, Wade, and LeBron playing together? Because I can remember
I just don't think anybody ever thought it was going to come to fruition. I mean, I think as much as people thought LeBron was going to, at one point it was that LeBron was going to Chicago. He was going to team up with Wade, and it was going to be LeBron, Wade. It was going to be LeBron, Wade, and Rose in Chicago. Wow. And that's what it was going to be.
Hold on. Let's go back. Explain that again.
Originally, at one point, when it first happened over the summer, I'll never forget being in Chicago 4 years ago, and people go, I was sitting there. People already had LeBron jerseys. They had LeBron number 6 jerseys in Chicago, sitting there on the subway. And I felt really uncomfortable. Going, I can't believe the Bulls are going to get LeBron. I honestly thought at that point they're going to get LeBron. And then suddenly, a week before the decision, Adrian Wojnarowski writes an article, Brian Windhurst. He's coming back to the Cavs. It was the best move. It's a done deal. He's back to Cleveland. And suddenly it was, boom, Bosh, Wade, LeBron, bam.
Well, yeah, because Stephen A. Smith even on First Take, him.
Stephen A. Smith took a guess, ran with it. That was right. Don't forget, Stephen A. Smith 4 years ago had nothing to lose. He didn't have a job. He was out of a job at that point. He was out of a job for ESPN had fired him because he was an idiot.
Yeah, he and Chris Broussard were saying that LeBron was as good as gone, per their sources. And, I mean, like you say, they just happened to be, a lucky guess. Because, I mean, Chris Broussard and Stephen A. Smith were among, I don't know how many, but I know that those two were very adamant about LeBron not coming back to Cleveland.
Well, Chris Broussard used to be the beat writer for the Cavs for the Plain Dealers. So Chris Broussard probably still has sources in Cleveland. I mean, the only reason I didn't believe it was true because if Brian Windhurst wasn't reporting it, I wasn't buying it. That was the only credible source 4 years ago.
Yeah, Windhorst can tell you if he's having Fruit Loops or bacon for breakfast.
Yeah, I mean, he licks cereal out of his ass and stuff. I mean, it's pretty bad.
And Brian hasn't won. Brian very rarely has brought up LeBron coming back to Cleveland up until recently. I've been saying it for a while because another fact is I've had nothing to lose, and that's why I go on a show like this.
And I'm a homer. I'm an unabashed homer that's been pimping this stuff for a long time. I don't like holding my breath, hoping that an ex is going to come back to me and our love will be rekindled. But LeBron James still is the best player in the league, and if you team him up with some of the young talent the Cavs have, including Kyrie and the number 1 pick this year, yeah, it's a kind of appealing thing, and there's nowhere else LeBron is going to get to check this off of his checklist other than the Cleveland Cavaliers.
And I give my honest opinions on the show. I really do. I give my honest opinion.
You do.
When I hear from a source, I go and I take it and I run with it. I was right about the Baron Davis trade a few years ago when he went to Cleveland with the pick. I called that one. I knew that one was coming. And, because I had heard about it. And there are times I know, but are there times I'm willing to take it to ESPN with the credibility of my source? Sometimes no. But am I willing to say it on this show? Yes, because more likely than not, I am right. Am I 100% sure? No, but I have that 90% guarantee. But at that point, though, like I said, it's my sources. When I have a source, they are very rarely wrong. But until I get full credibility, that's why I'm always willing to take stuff 3 to 4 months early, because when I hear about stuff 3 to 4 months earlier, I'm willing to take it and run with it on the show. Because odds are I'm going to be right.
Yeah,
if I am wrong, I'll take some heat for it. But it's not like the heat I would take where if I go on national TV and say something like that.
Pardon the pun again. Right.
So,
and that's
so then. Let me ask this real quick before you go to the next thing. So, yeah. I mean, why do you both feel that LeBron can come back to Cleveland?
It makes the most sense. Okay, here's the deal number one. Okay, and I have gotten guaranteed information that his kids are going back to school in Akron next year. This is as of Friday.
Okay, now because we spoke a few days ago, you're saying you have double checked and reconfirmed this?
Yeah, yes, I have gotten confirmation as of my source. This is actually, I'm sorry, I was talking with the person on Friday, talked with them again yesterday, And they said, and I said, well, I'm almost sure LeBron's kids are coming back, to Akron next year. He goes, oh, that's already a given. And I said, you're sure? And he goes, 100%, it's done. He goes, he's adding on 35,000 square feet to his house. You don't do that. If for a seasonal house, you're not going to live in a 70,000 square foot house. And you're not going to be sitting in, don't forget, LeBron's a family man. Believe it or not, he's a family man. He's not going to sit there and be away from his kid.
I saw that where he said the quote after that big loss a couple of days ago. The kids came in and said, "Dad, let's play basketball." And he said, "If you don't get away from me, you have no idea." And he said, "And what was I doing?" 20 minutes later, I was playing basketball with him. He said, "Because I realize now that some things are more important." And I think he's reaching that stage where you can win as many titles and be as big of a hot shot in South Beach as you want. But if your hometown state won't accept you, obviously your family, that's going to be number one. But, playing with your kids basketball when you don't want to, and then realizing that you were a hero and then you went to a zero and you've won some titles but something's still missing, it's because you kind of bailed before you finished over here. And he cannot do that anywhere else.
Exactly. If he comes back to Cleveland and he wins a title, not only will he'll be a god in Cleveland, he'll be a god in Akron, his hometown again. And I think it's just the perfect ending. It's a perfect ending to a movie. You had your climax, you had your conflict, you had everything.
I'd say perfect would be getting it done when it counted, but all right.
Let's say if the first 7 years in Cleveland, if he comes here and wins a ring next year in 2 years, all will be forgotten about the first 7 years and the decision. It's just Cleveland fans will forgive him. Whether they like to say it or not, I'm willing to bet that every single fan, I don't think one fan will hold any animosity or hatred towards LeBron after he wins the title. And like I said, I've been saying this now on the show for 3 years, is that the second Kyrie throws in the first alley-oop, every fan will be back in it again. People want to see a winner. People don't want to see a loser. And I've had people go, well, I'd rather watch a 40-win team than a 65-win team. I go, okay, I'm not even going to say it. I'll say my ass. I go, you know what I was going to say. But
absolutely. And no, I would not rather cut off my nose to spite my face. No, I want to see a packed house. I want to see the best record in all of the NBA. I would not rather have LeBron somewhere else and screw him. I don't care. He's still the best player in the league, and I just want a championship. So bring it if you can.
Nothing was more fun than when the Cavs were winning. You know it as well as I know it. Is back when it used to be every night you go, okay, I get to watch a winner tonight.
It was like the Indians in the 90s. Like the Indians in the mid to late 90s.
Every game you watched, you knew it was going to be exciting. They weren't going to lose, and if they did lose, it was down to the wire. They were never blown away in the last 2 years.
Well, and two, I think that, that real basketball fans, as much as, I know, Brian, I know you love LA and things like that. But, I also know that you're a big Cleveland fan. Real basketball fans, you root. This is why people root for the San Antonio Spurs, the Indiana Pacers, because, they're teams that, it's a Midwestern team. Everyone knows about Cleveland being a very blue-collar town and, stuff like that. So, I think it's great. But I also, Brian, you had mentioned something about South Beach. And the thing is about South Beach is I think that LeBron and his family have spent enough time there to realize that it's not a place. It's not
a place to raise a family.
Well, it's not so much that, but it's not a basketball city. It's not. It's just not a place.
City. It's just not a sports city in general. They can't support the Marlins. They can barely support the Dolphins. Can't support the U, and the Florida Panthers are virtually unheard of.
Well, so, it's a fair weather state. I've lived in Miami and I live in Tampa. You go to the Dolphins game.
It's the same thing with California.
Let them play in the Patriots. It's like easily like 70-30.
Miami has a lot of foreigners. There's a lot of Russians. There's a lot of Cubans. There's a lot of people who don't care about basketball, and they just like to get on it when it's hot. It's just how it is.
Well, not only that, but the fact is too is that it's such a transient place. A perfect example is this past football season. When the University of Miami was winning, everybody was sporting the U gear. Everybody was down for the Hurricanes. Then when the Gators were winning, everyone was walking around doing the Gator chomp and Tim Tebow is God and whatnot. And then this year, people were like,
Jameis, yeah.
Yeah, everyone is about Jameson. And, the thing is about Miami, that's how it is. It's one of those places that, like, to your point earlier, bars are packed, but it's more or less that, people go to Heat games before they go clubbing in South Beach. It's not one of those.
I mean,
it's
people,
not just a basketball
I have
place.
friends that go down to Heat games, and you're sitting there in Hyde Lounge at the AAA down there, and you're in Hyde Lounge during the game, not exactly paying attention to the game. You go there to be seen. It's like a Lakers game. You go there to be seen. It's not there to necessarily go and cheer on your team. It's there you're seen, and that's about it.
Do you think a player like LeBron, do you think he notices the difference between half-ass fan interest in a rabid mother effer, bring me a damn championship before I die, Cleveland fanaticism?
I think every player notices that, and I think he realizes he'll be bigger than God when he comes back again. And like I said, I think no matter what, here's how we have to look at it. But before we end the show, I got to end this soon because I got to go to bed. It's getting late. I got to be up early in the morning. And so we'll wrap it up within the next 5 minutes. But I want to get to my point, which I haven't gotten to make yet, whereas that LeBron's not going to the Western Conference next year. I said this on the show the other day. He's not going to go to Houston. He's not going to go to the Lakers. He's not going to the Clippers because he doesn't want to have to face San Antonio next year. He doesn't want to have to face Houston. He doesn't want to have to face Memphis. He doesn't want to have to face OKC. But don't forget, let's say LeBron's on a team that let's say LeBron's on a team that's the number 1 seed next year, and San Antonio for some reason is the number 4 because all those teams win 60 games a season anyway. And suddenly LeBron's playing the Spurs in the second round. He's out in the conference semifinals. Not happening. LeBron's staying in the East where he's got his best road to the championship. So cancel out 15 teams. You got 15 teams left. He's not going to the Knicks. They don't have the cap space to sign him.
No, hold on. Hold on. Wait. Let me slow down. I like this. Reset this for a second because what you have here is you're doing process of elimination. I remember it was like 6th grade when I was in the LEAP classes for Learning Enriched Advancement Program or whatever, accelerated program, and we had to do like these thought experiments. So you're going backwards here. It's not where is he going, it's where is he not going. So he's not going to 15 teams right off the bat. Who else is he not going to and why?
Teams. You can cancel out.
Let's keep canceling.
Teams like Charlotte, Orlando, all those teams, Boston. You can't go to New York or Brooklyn because of the cap space. So suddenly you got 3 teams in the East that are possibilities, and that's Cleveland, Miami, and Chicago. The Bulls I do not see happening just because if you would have gone to Chicago, this wouldn't have happened 4 years ago. We would have gone to Chicago. Derrick Rose didn't want to play with him 4 years ago. I don't think that would happen now with Derrick Rose being out the last 2 years virtually. I don't see that one happening. I see they're more likely to get Carmelo or Kevin Love. So by process of elimination, getting down to it, it's Miami or Cleveland for LeBron. Now, granted, LeBron could pull a complete 180 here and flip and do something that we haven't seen and go very LeBron what he did in 2010. I tend to think he's more humble now. I tend to think he's making more calculated decisions. And when you start weighing the factors between Miami and Cleveland, here are the differences. Miami is an aging roster with virtually no bench. Cleveland is a team that's stacked with young assets and picks, and you already have young talent on the roster, which I think LeBron is getting into his 30s now. We'll be playing somewhere where there's plenty of young talent on the roster, not guys who are in their early to mid-30s. So looking at it, I think Cleveland's the way he goes now. I'm more sure than I have been in the last 4 years about LeBron coming back to Cleveland. I'm saying this on the show tonight. I'm not saying I'm willing to guarantee anything, but my odds are finally above 50% now. I think it's somewhere in the lines of close to 70% that I'm thinking he goes back to Cleveland next year. And I'm saying that on the air. Off the air, I might say a number that's even way higher than that. But let's see how the next couple of days go, and let's see how the next couple of weeks go.
When are we going to have the opt-out moment? When does that happen?
I'd say sometime in the next week.
Sooner
than later.
You
might wait until June 24th to do it, which I think is the date.
That's still 9 days. That's only a week week and 2 days. No biggie.
Yeah, he'll do it before the draft. Right? The draft
I tend to think it happens sooner than later, and I think that because I truly believe, and this is my honest thought, is that if he was going to opt in, I think he would have given more along the lines tonight that he would probably be opting in. He gave no assurance to Miami that he would be there next year. None.
But on
all those questions.
But on the flip side, you're exhausted. You just got your ass whooped by the team you barely snuck past last year.
Miami won this series, and you're going there after Game 7 after Miami wins. You say, LeBron, what can you tell us about your future next year? You'd be like, I really don't know yet, but I'm looking forward. I'm going to talk it over with these guys. I think I'm going to opt in.
We've won 3 out of 4. It's going to be hard to walk away from this. We could revamp the roster. Yeah, it feels good. It doesn't feel good right now.
Well,
guys, this was a really sour taste in their mouth, and they got their asses kicked 3 games in a row, and they were nowhere near winning that series.
It wasn't competitive, not even close.
They weren't in the same league as San Antonio. That looked like a 65-win team playing a 35-win team. It looked like a first against an ace seed.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just as we're doing this, I'm watching obviously muted, but I'm watching some of the press conference stuff, and you know how they have the little ticker tape information, and I mean, I think it's very interesting that they just put up an Instagram photo from Dwayne Wade, and it just basically said like, win or lose, no matter what happens, these guys are my brothers, and it's a picture in black and white. It looks like they're by a pool, and it's with Wade, Bosh, and LeBron. So I mean, I think that again, I think that that's more telling of what's to come, as Zach is saying, within these next couple of days. And
Do you
weeks.
think that they know?
They do know?
I think they know. I think LeBron's, he's probably difficult to read, but at the same time, if you're close with him, I think he's easy to read. And what I had heard last week was if they lost, he would most likely be opting out. If they won, he was going to opt in. This is as if a week ago.
Wow.
This is as if Game 2 of the NBA Finals.
And really, Zach,
if they won, he would be opting in. He wouldn't have a choice. After winning 3 straight rings, he would not have a choice of whether it was opting in or opting out.
And once again, to go play with the Clippers or try to, I mean, how are you going to swing the money with all these teams? The Cavs are prime position to do this. It's hard to justify. Imagine if they won it this year. It's going to be really hard to justify going anywhere except for Cleveland. How would you ever justify it? Yeah, I have to go to Orlando to make something happen. No, I got to go to New Jersey. No, I must play in Boston. No, you don't. There's one thing you need to do.
With Cleveland, it's not like he's going to be sitting here and roster jumping. Don't forget, if he goes to Cleveland, Cleveland can bring in another star alongside of him, also to pair with Kyrie Irving and the LeBron overall pick. That's where Cleveland comes into play. And people go, I'm not going to play in Cleveland. I'm not going to play in Cleveland. Bullshit. People go where the money's at. People are going to go where, this isn't – people realize that big market thing didn't work out. It didn't work out for Carmelo in New York. It didn't work – it just didn't work for him. And I think people – and it didn't work for Darren Williams in Brooklyn. I don't think people are fixated anymore on the big market because look where it got Darren Williams. Darren Williams had a much better career with Utah than he had in Brooklyn. Now he wants out of Brooklyn, and Carmelo wants out of New York.
This is what I've been saying for the longest time, Zach and Damien. This is the internet age. You could be huge in Milwaukee if you're LeBron James. You could be huge in Cleveland. I mean, he's hosted Saturday Night Live. He's the number one guy with Nike. Beats by Dre.
Oklahoma City. It's very difficult to be big in Oklahoma City because it's such a small market.
I guess, but name me one person that doesn't know all about how awesome Kevin Durant is, and he's pimping products too.
Kevin Durant, if he played in a bigger market, I'm not saying if Kevin Durant played in Phoenix, he would be bigger than he is in Oklahoma City. If Kevin Durant played in Houston, if he played in Cleveland, even Detroit, he would be much bigger than he is in Oklahoma City.
Well, we've already established you do not love OKC as a city.
No, I'm just saying it's a city. It's not a big city. It's the 46th largest media market in the country. It's not a large city. I drove through there and the whole state smelled like crap. And I mean,
I go there. I go there for work actually. For my work in clinical research, and I mean, it's kind of one of those things where it's almost in a weird way like Miami in that it's a football state,
like a fish out of water a little bit.
Yeah.
I was in San Antonio last week, and I have to say, San Antonio was one of those cities. San Antonio was tough to get to. They don't make it easy to get there. They have a very small airport, but was it a nice city and were the people as nice as can be? Yeah, I don't have a bad thing to say about that city.
Yes,
I really don't, other than it had a small airport. San Antonio, though, is also another team for winning 5 championships. They've been pretty irrelevant, though, over the last 15 years for winning as much as they have because it's a smaller market and because they are so isolated.
Yeah, and they're not a flashy basketball team. I mean, they're almost, they're literally.
But if San Antonio, if those are the Chicago Bulls, if it was in a bigger market, it'd be different. But now they're starting to get the recognition because of the age of social media. They're getting it, but Oklahoma City is still the smallest market in the NBA by a long shot. And before I wrap this up, just saying again, is Cleveland has a lot to provide LeBron. They have the issue where he can come home. Cleveland they can make a very, very calculated pitch to LeBron this time. They're saying, listen, you're coming home. You're going to sit there. You're going to win a title. Not only do we have the cap space for you, we have that. We have young talent to provide you with.
What did they do last year, Zach? When LeBron had the first opportunity to opt out for the decision, didn't they make a cartoon with Delonte West about staying with your friends?
It was a Family Guy. It was a Family Guy type cartoon, and they were, I think they were so sold. I really don't think they had the roster to pitch LeBron, so they preached that, staying home. winning a championship at home. Now it's different. They say, listen, you're coming home. You know, you had your years, you were able to win there, and now we can actually put together a formidable roster where you can win here. And listen, come here. You know, we just, you know, and like I said, the Cavaliers, if LeBron is coming back, he will have input on who they draft number 1 because they will all be all about next year. And Andrew Wiggins gives them a better opportunity to win next year than Joel Embiid does.
I agree. I think Joel Embiid is the second coming of Greg Oden. I think when you're under,
I don't think that.
Two major back surgeries.
Embiid could be a fan. If Embiid's back checks out, he's going to be a star.
Well, because Zach, you would say Embiid reminds you of Drummond or something up in Detroit.
No, I think he's more of a guarantee than Drummond. Andre Drummond was not a guarantee.
You said Embiid, if healthy, would be the next Hakeem Olajuwon on last show that we did.
He could be, but Andrew Wiggins also has a chance to be a superstar too. And the thing is, Andrew Wiggins automatically, I think Wiggins has a chance to become a huge superstar in Cleveland with the fact that he would be the 4th option on next year's team if they go out and get another great player, which they can, and they have the talent to do that in the future picks to do that. So if you're sitting there saying, okay, we've got LeBron, we've got Horford, we've got Kyrie, okay, Andrew Wiggins, suddenly his defense is already NBA ready. We're going to sit there, we're going to use this guy as a 4th option. We've got Kyrie to feed him the ball. We've got LeBron to feed him the ball. We've got all these guys to give him the ball. He's going to have so many open looks. This guy's going to succeed. He's going to have a lot of confidence. You know, he's not going to have to steal the show. This is a guy who's not going to be relied upon very heavily the first 2 years in the league, 3 years in the league. And what's going to happen is LeBron's going to keep giving a little ways to Kyrie and Wiggins each time where they keep getting better and better, and it allows LeBron to fade off without actually noticing from anyone. And I think that's the biggest thing about it. LeBron's going to want to play with young people. He's not going to go and play with Kobe and Carmelo in a Laker uniform this year. I think that would be the dumbest thing ever, and if he does it, he'll regret that decision forever. My guess is he signs a 4-year deal with the Cavs with those opt-in years.
And there it is.
The prognostication. It's going to happen, and it's going to happen, the 24th is when it's probably going to be announced. Then 26th is the draft. So we're going to see a lot of movement in the next
what date
week or so.
Start? I believe, is it somewhere around the 10th?
Well, there, you know what? I got a little device here. So what? I'm typing NBA free agency. Yeah.
I know it's somewhere around the 10th, whether it's July 8th, July 12th.
Good question. Yeah, I'm not getting it. Let's see. 2014, 2015. Either way, it's coming up soon. I'm trying to find it here. It's in May 29th, 20. Yeah, see, this is where I need a producer. Where's my... Damien, want to be my producer?
Sure.
A little laugh out moment. No, but it's all going to be happening really fast. Either way, I couldn't find it real quick, so I'm giving up. But it's all going to be happening really fast. Cavs don't have a coach. LeBron has to figure out if he's staying or not. I'm watching that team. I just can't see it. I cannot see him saying, no, I want to be here for a few more years. So, Zach, final question, because we do have to wrap this up. I know it's late on the East Coast and such, and thank you guys both for joining us here on the Unhappy Hour. If LeBron opts in Miami, is that a 1 year to 1 year to 1 year? Is he opting in for 3 years?
Yes, it's 1 year to 1 year if he opts in.
So he could say, I don't know, maybe one more year, and he could do that. And if he came over to Cleveland, what kind of contract is that likely to be? A 3-year?
4 year. My guess is it could be 3 years.
And so what is that, 2 years guaranteed with 2 years for an opt-in? Or can you set it up any way you want? I've never negotiated one of these deals. I don't know how it works.
I mean, it all depends. I mean, it depends how they negotiate. My guess is LeBron would sign a 3-year deal with option years or a 4-year deal with option years. And I think the Cavaliers would have to be very smart about it, too, because do they want a 35-year-old LeBron being able to opt in for $25 million a season or $30 million a season? That's the thing, too. That could really strap them financially. But, you know, LeBron could still be a highly elite player in 5 years. I don't think that's something that's going to kill the deal. If that's what LeBron wanted. He wants a max deal in Cleveland with guaranteed money. He's going to get that. He's going to get that max deal. It's not going to matter.
Yeah, I would tend to think that as well. And you know that Dan Gilbert's going to make that money up in merchandise and all the nationally televised games again. And he's feeling the hurt.
Don't forget, Quicken Loans Arena will be going under another renovation very, very soon. Don't forget that whole area around the Gateway area. It's an area around the casino. Don't forget Gilbert's if he's got 20,000 fans coming there on a nightly basis. that's more, you got happy fans that are willing to go and piss away money at the casino every night.
Oh, yeah, get sauced up and go dump a few more G's over there.
Gilbert stands to make a lot more money by doing that. So I tend to think he goes on that option, and that's what ends up happening. So, like I said, we'll play it by ear, but, and like I said, I'm down to come on the show again very soon, but I think that's where the Cleveland stands right now, and I think Dan Gilbert's going to sit there and make him every possible offer. I don't even know if Gilbert will be in the meeting. It might be David Griffin, and that's it.
Wow. Well, that might be the case with all the previous history. Maybe start fresh with the new face. Damien, real quick, if you're the Cavs, who do you draft number 1?
Andrew Wiggins, no question.
Zach, who do you draft number 1?
If based on LeBron, it depends how quickly you need to win. Long term, if LeBron's not coming back and you know that, and you want to, like I said, and you think you're getting the best possible player and Embiid's back checks out, I think it's Joel Embiid. I think if you're looking to win right away and you got LeBron coming back in the best possible situation to make Wiggins a superstar, I think you take Andrew Wiggins. So right now, I'm going with Wiggins at number 1.
But basically not Jabari Parker. He's a very fine, excellent player.
But Parker and LeBron play the same position.
So there's no way. So sorry,
and
pal.
Parker's defense is a huge lapse, and you don't need that kind of scoring ability right away with Parker.
Hope you like Milwaukee.
42% his rookie year. You're looking to win a championship right away. You're looking for the guy who's a viable defender, which is Andrew Wiggins, not Jabari Parker.
Agreed.
And I'll say this: who do I draft if I'm the Cavs GM? Whoever LeBron wants me to if he comes back. I mean, let's just be honest.
Which would wind up being Wiggins. You're going to take a Nike guy in Wiggins and pair on with Kyrie. It's going to create a marketing sensation.
I could just see it now, and I'm already picturing it. It's been a long 4 years of basketball
and
purgatory.
And don't forget, you get Drake at every home game too. Drake will basically have an apartment in Cleveland at that point with Johnny Football, LeBron, and Wiggins being here.
Whatever happened to what's his nuts? Usher? Is he still? Did he sell his share off? Is he still around?
He was back last season a little bit. I don't know what Usher's deal is. So, but all I can tell you is Drake will have a courtside seat at every Cavs game if LeBron's there, and he'll also be probably at every Browns game.
Will there be inflatable swans and champagne?
I don't know. Maybe they'll have We the North sweatshirts.
Well, I'll tell you what. We'll see how it plays out in the next week and a half, and we're going to have a lot more information coming up here real soon as free agency kicks in, the draft kicks in, the opt-in, opt-out opportunities kick in. And I just want to thank both of you guys, Damien Hall. Damien, if you anyone listening, do you want to tell them to follow you on Twitter or anything?
I mean, just not right now. No, I mean, I'm
perfect.
A regular dude, so.
All right, this is my regular dude, homie, basketball fan, Damien Hall. Thank you very much for joining us. I appreciate your time, Damien. Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, and I also want to thank you, as usual, Zach. Appreciate your time on the program, and we're going to have plenty more to talk about real soon. Thank you so much for taking the time to celebrate this Spurs victory with me, buddy.
Thanks again, Brian.
All right, take care. All right, everybody,
Take
please make sure that if you have not done so, you check out our homepage, thenewamericanmedia.com. Please also sign up to follow us on Twitter. We're at American_media_. Search us on Facebook for The New American Media, with spaces in between, and like our page because we like it when you do that. And subscribe to youtube.com/The New American Media. Signing out for everybody here at the Unhappy Hour in the TNAM Radio Network here at The New American Media. I love you. I appreciate you. Go Spurs. And let's go Cavs.